Good morning, everyone. This is the real Fran Lewis on MJ Network with fantastic author Alan Jacobson, and he's bringing back one of my favorite characters that I love, Karen Vale. She's so like me, it's amazing. If she wants something done, she just gets it done. So I have the questions in front of me. I reread Fatal Twist 7 times. I don't know. Well, who is she? And let's start with there's so many people that have the idea of who the character is that we'll be discussing today. So explain Karen Vale because she's one of my favorites.
Well, Karen Vale is one of my favorites as well. And it sounds funny to say that for an author,
Yeah.
but when I first created the character of Karen Vale, it was purely by accident. I remember sitting, this is like very, very early in my career, way before I was published. I was writing a different novel that never got published, which is fine because it was terrible. But it was exploratory, experimental, and I needed a character that was an FBI agent. And I don't know where she came from. She came from somewhere deep inside me, as I've once described it. And that's basically what it was. She came to me. I started writing her as fast as I could. I couldn't write her fast enough, and although that scene never made it anywhere, except my drawer, um, I remembered her,
Oh.
and I said, someday I'm going to have to write a novel about her, just involving her as the protagonist. And when I started doing my research with the FBI's behavioral analysis unit,
Mhm.
as I came to know very, very well two senior FBI profilers at Quantico. And the first one I got to know first, that was Mark Safrick, and Mark and I hit it off, and we just started talking behavioral analysis and profiling, among other things. But we would spend hours on the phone at a time, and I'm not kidding, hours
Mm.
talking about serial offenders and profiling and criminal investigative analysis, even though back then it wasn't called that. This is 1994, early 1994. And so it to date has been a 32-year journey for me writing Karen Vale. But at the time, I had discovered somebody who I later discovered was part me, uh, part women who were important in my life, my wife, my mother, and that's who Karen Vale is. She's a very strong, dedicated individual. As Agent Safrick had said to me at the time, don't make her a superhuman. We don't want any super profilers. And of course, nowadays with all the Marvel movies, maybe it would have been good to have a superhero FBI profiler. No, I jest. Basically, he said, keep her real, respect the job that we profilers actually do. And it was really good advice. It followed what I wanted to do, and that was write somebody who was genuine, real, felt real to the reader, uh, made mistakes because she's human, like all of us, and ultimately be relatable to you and I as readers. Because if we're reading a book and we can't relate to the character, we don't really get emotionally engaged. But if we do engage with that character as the
Mm.
story progresses, the story means a lot to us. We get engrossed in what's happening. We don't want bad things to happen to her. We follow along with what she's seeing because we're seeing the story through her eyes. It's all told, at least the chapters that I usually write regarding the profiling unit uh, are in Karen Vale's point of view. So we do hear her voice. her dry wit. She's very funny. She's very quick, but she could also be a bit abrasive, particularly in the earlier novels. We've got 8 thus far. So she does evolve as a character, learning how to get along better with people. And but she still got that Karen Vale spunk, and
I know. Let
that's
me
who
get
she
these
is.
3 done because I won't even say where I'm going after this. You know where I'm
Yeah.
going. Okay, there had to be a challenge in writing 3 stories. And I'll be very honest, I I have the manuscript because it weighs more than I do. And I sat down and I read it and I'm going, what made it really much more fun was that it was 3 different stories. So I read the first one, which really I couldn't put down. I thought that was so clever to take it after a crazy man and serial killer. I said, "Oh, that must have been great 3 stories." But my favorite one was the second one, was Ben
Well,
Dwyer.
yes, yes. You know, if you had to ask me which was my favorite amongst these 3 stories, I don't know. That would be really tough. It's kind of like choosing my favorite novel. I can't do it.
Yeah, I love this one the best.
There are elements that I really, really, really enjoy about each of my novels. But if I were to say, well, which is my favorite, I don't think I'd be. It's kind of like choosing your favorite child. You just can't do it. Um, so, the I had challenges writing these stories because to me, Karen Vale is a long form character, meaning the stories that I tell involving her are involved stories.
Mm,
They, they're not simple whodunits. There are layers to the story. Sometimes the layers are apparent up front, and sometimes we discover different layers as we go along, and sometimes some of the layers are hidden until the end. And taking that and moving a long form novel into a short form short story uh, required a lot of thought because that was not the way I saw the character. Karen Vale takes time
mm.
to develop her cases. And, again, one thing that we haven't discussed, Fran, is that I'm very research oriented and I make up the stories that I'm telling, obviously, and the characters that populate those stories. But everything else that's real in this world should be factually accurate. At least that's the way I approach it and try to do my craft. So if a character pulls out a particular handgun, that handgun has a design to it. It has a way to function. Glocks don't have physical safeties. So, if I have a character pulls a Glock and, flicks the safety, and anybody who knows that is going to be lost at that point. And they're going to say, well, no, it's not right. This guy didn't do his homework. So I don't want to lose any characters. I don't want people to read this and go, well, the FBI doesn't do that kind of work. That would be, the U.S. Marshals. So I make sure that when I write a character, I write a story and a character, that I've done my research and my homework and worked with those experts who do this stuff in real life. And honestly, it relates to a much deeper character, a much deeper story, um, because there are certain things that you can't make up. You can make up stuff all the time. That's what we do, but as authors. But the bottom line is there's a genuineness to reality. And if somebody you're working with in law enforcement tells you this crazy story that they had happen to them, and you can use that in your story, that just adds a measure of verisimilitude to the story and the character that can't be duplicated if I just made stuff up.
This
So
is so like on the news also. And I mean, the serial killer was my favorite character in that story. I actually was hoping he would be there longer, but I could understand why. I mean, I had an unfortunate experience. I had a student that got in trouble a long time ago, and the police department called me to come and talk to him. in the precinct, and I said, "What the heck?" I did.
Wow.
I actually did, and I did save him a jail sentence because I said there's no way he would do something like that, or maybe he did, but I didn't think he would ever do anything like that. I got him out of it. I didn't realize what a good double talker. Yeah, I did. I was like, what the heck? It was right. My father's store was right near the 47th precinct, and they knew my father. And I said, I'll go there as long as I get protected by one of your people. So I actually did it, and it was like, was interesting. But Karen Veal in this book, in this particular one, she has to actually go into the prison to meet the serial killer, which I thought was really great. And then when she comes out, she realizes who it was, and that was really sad. So I don't know if this was one of my favorite stories, but I really like the other one, next one better.
So
But she really had to go into prison to meet him in order to get the information. And when she does, I got nervous. I thought he was going to get, there was going to be a different kind of ending. I wouldn't say what.
right. Well, that goes to what we were discussing a few
Yeah,
moments ago relative to the challenges.
yeah,
Typically, and the research. Typically, when a profiler or any
yeah.
investigator, right, but a profiler who works a case and is really trying to get to the uh, the type of person who committed this crime and the type of person this suspect, a serial killer is, they have to build a rapport. And you don't build a rapport in 3 minutes.
Mm,
You don't even build a rapport in an hour. So um, sometimes you have to compress things. In a novel, you can sometimes get away with it by have something happen that makes them closer emotionally on some level. But when you're writing a short story, it's much harder. Everything time frame is compressed
hmm.
dramatically, so you have to approach it from a different perspective. And in this case, Stephen Ray Vaughan was the killer that she interviews, and it happened to be somebody that she already had. Uh, she was the one who helped put him away initially, so she had a relationship with him. He knew her, she knew him. I didn't have to go through that process or explain away the process of developing a rapport with him. She already had one. So those are the kind of things you have to do that the reader does not know about, doesn't even think about. It's not a concern of theirs, but as the author, you got to do your homework to figure it out how you're going to take those leaps and compress the story to be able to keep it believable.
Now we're going to go to the second one and double take.
Mm-hmm.
Images on a sharp twist of perception after one glasses. What was the spark for the story? And did the ending come to you first, or did the characters lead you? And the narrative plays with duality, identity, motive. This was really, Ben Dwyer really got me. At first, I thought it was like two stories in one. That there was the first part and the second part, and I felt so sad at the end because I had to get the tissues out because I felt bad. But yet somehow, when you have a friend, what can I say? This is really, I love this story.
Yeah, it was Double Take is one of those stories we say comes from the Karen Vale universe. So Vale is
Yeah.
not actually in it physically, but three characters from the Karen Vale universe are, and they were in Spectrum, and there was one or two other novels that a couple of the characters appear in. So uh, the concept behind it. So when you do your research, um, most of the time I'm reading articles that I find of interest. It could be on law enforcement,
Mm,
could be on spying or spec ops, which is my other series that I
mm,
write, the OPSIC Team Black, a covert ops series. And so I read articles on these topics every day. And
mm-hmm.
it's not necessarily for the story that I'm writing today. It's for background information that I store away in my brain. And the same happens when I go and visit a new country or a city that I haven't been to before. Um, when you experience a culture and see a city, and it can stimulate something in you where the story starts to take shape in your mind.
Mm.
And what I usually do at that point is I'll dictate something into an email and send it to myself. And that way it's stored in my inbox. I don't have to worry about finding it. Uh, I'll put something in the subject line that I always put so I can do a search and always find those emails with notes to myself. But with Double Take, it happened to be a piece of research, an article relative to a piece of research that dealt with. Um, I can't go into it because that would ruin the reveal of the story. But let's just say it dealt with something that involves a lot of people in our country, in the world, really. But let's just talk about our country. And there's a reason for it, and it's something that we really don't treat very well, don't handle very well as a society. And I found it very intriguing, and I thought, man, that would make a terrific story.
It
And
is.
the sharp twist of perception, as you put it, is the way I was able to tell that story, where it's just very dramatic when you realize what's going on. And that was the initial spark and the ending all in one, because in this case, the ending is part of the whole story. I mean, the ending is what you're getting to. It's the whole purpose of the story. And I love those types of novels. I love those types of stories where
Hmm.
you're leading towards something. And my novels always work that way. And my stories, likewise, that's the way I think, that's the way I write. Um, I have an outline. I know where I want to go. I may learn things along the way, and the route may change here and there, but where I end up, that destination does not change, because, again, the layers, the things that are happening, some you're aware of, some you as the reader are not. But it's there for a purpose and a reason, and that's how you get to the ending. Um, I like,
He lost the sight of reality at one point. I knew that. And
yeah,
also when I read the first part when he met his friend, I knew there had to be a twist in there when he asked where she was, and then I was like, you don't you want to tell him the truth, but you don't want to tell him the truth.
yeah.
And
Well,
Ben was like, I felt so bad for him.
so the reader knows what we're talking about without ruining anything. The story opens where Ben Dyer, Detective
Mm.
Ben Dyer, is getting is recovering from a medical procedure, surgery for cancer that he had on his foot, um, and he's brought home by his mentor, NYPD Police Lieutenant Carmine
Hmm.
Russo. Again, is he's in the Karen Vale, a number of Karen Vale novels, and so Russo takes him home and sets him down, and basically uh, Ben comes to the realization that his fiance is not there, and Russo goes to explain why, and Ben Dyer does not take it well, and so that's the jumping off story point for the story. And because it's a short story, we don't want to go too much further into the story, but um, that sets off the chain of events that come to form the whole basis of what's going on.
Well, what I have to tell you is because I read your thing, I did something out of the box. I'm very proud. You'd be very embarrassed. Everything I write is usually horror. I went through every single book I wrote and found every story that was a lie. Every story where somebody lied and didn't get away with it or did get away with it at the end. And my publisher thought it's called When Lies Win.
I like the title.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of stories with lies, and I just hope that she said she's going to start reading it. I took all my faces, all everything that I've ever written that had lies, true stories, some of them fake, put them into this book, and she said, "I can't believe you did that." I said, "Just look at the news. How many lies do we hear every single day in political and those in public office?" And I find that Facebook has become, I don't even post on it, a bunch of political people that analyze what's going on. And
Well,
it's sad. It's
honestly,
sad. I
yeah,
don't
it's not
post on
just
the
Facebook;
Facebook.
it's everywhere. Yeah, yeah.
No, I just post on American Idol because I had to vote. And I got so popular with some of the people that are on the show. It was hilarious. They ask you, who do you want to vote for? Then they disagree with you, and I crack up laughing. Otherwise, I don't even put my streams. I put my streams on LinkedIn. I guarantee when I'm done and I post a video, you're going to get views in a couple of minutes. Besides, it goes on YouTube, TikTok, X, Blue Sky, everywhere.
Wow,
I
awesome.
can't believe how popular I am. But this second story really got to me because it's real. It could really happen. I mean, I work with students that were bipolar.
Yeah.
I work with students that were schizophrenic in regular ed, and I was able to deal with it, which is amazing because you can become. You know, I mean, I was like, yeah, there's something wrong with this guy. I feel so bad. And then the ending was like, not bad.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love. Now, here comes the next story. This was really, I don't know why I thought there was a fourth one. I don't know why I thought there was a story about a mother that was, one that didn't end.
Yeah,
That's
no,
why I got confused. Yeah.
yeah, that was an excerpt of one of my novels that my
Oh, I love
publisher.
that.
Yeah, that's
I
really
said, well, gee, well, what's next? But Fatal Twist.
fatal twist, right?
Oh my God. The Park Rapist. Now, if you read Fatal Twist, just listen to the news. They're having problem with serial rapists. They're having trouble with teenagers getting raped. It's all true. And if you listen to Channel 12, it gets on your nerves after a while, but that's what's been happening between that and fires is the next topic that everybody's writing about. Wildfire, and there's been like five in New Jersey and up in Montclair, and fires out of nowhere, buildings, businesses, everything on fire. And I'm beginning to wonder if somebody's setting those fires. So
Serial
Fatal
larceny.
Twist,
Yeah.
describe this first scene and the person they went to get the park rapist. I love Leroy Washington. I,
So,
I gotta tell you, sometimes the bad guy just, what can I say?
so fatal twist was my uh, attempt to do something with Karen Vale that
Yeah.
I had not done in the novels at this point yet, and that was to deal with serial rapists. At the point that I had written Fatal Twist, Karen Vale had dealt with serial bomber, serial arsonist, uh, obviously serial murderers, but serial rapists is
Mhm.
also something that the behavioral analysis unit
Yeah.
has done. And, very often, not always, but often a serial rapist can escalate and become a serial killer. And that's what we're looking at here with the park rapist. Uh, there's a body discovered at Washington Square Park in Foggy Bottom, West End area of Washington D.C. And they're trying to discover what's going on. It's a rainy, windy day, just really messing with their crime scene, and they're trying to keep things dry as possible. But of course, it's a losing proposition because it was pouring before they got there. So their crime scene is a mess. They're trying to determine, is this the same
Yeah.
offender who had raped others in the city? And so that's the opening scene. I thought it was pretty interesting because you get into the head a little bit of Karen Vale as she tries to analyze what's happening with one of the detectives who also appears in the Karen Vale
Yeah.
novels. And then you asked about Leroy Washington. I thought it would be very interesting to create a character who appears to be initially your typical bad guy, just out to murder somebody, and we're rooting against him. But as the pages go on, we realize there's more to him, and the reason why he's doing what he's doing, it's a gray area. Maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. Maybe we are rooting for him instead of rooting against him. So that was, a fun part that I played relative to the character, and it gives a punch to the reader when they get to the realization of what happened. And again, we can't go into that for risk of ruining the story, but that's the basis behind it.
Well, me, before I forget, I'm trying to forget, on the 21st, I have Joe Clifford with Skeletal Theory. We're going to talk about the Mandela theory, Mandela effect, and one of the best books. On the 26th, this is hilarious. It's called J.P. People's Lottery. The guy buys a lottery ticket, but he forgets to put his name on it and has only the numbers. So when the boss gets the $40 million, he absconds with it. And what he does at the end to get it, you got to read it to believe it. On the 8th, I have J.J. Harrigan, Goodbye Demons. And on the 11th, my reading professor and I, Dr. George Cavuto, will do some reading strategies. The problem is I have to do the research and answer the questions. And I do. And at the end of the month, I am honored Stephen Manchester is going to be here with The Ledger and Tess Gerritsen
Ah,
in August. And the number one interior decorator in the world, Howard Wiggins, at the end of August. So I'm booked to the end of August, everybody. I'm on to September. And
you
I
know,
asked to interview, I can't believe it, the producer for the Stephen Colbert Show,
ah,
late night for Stephen Colbert. She's coming on. I have no idea. Our book is about whatever. So that's what I'm going to be up to. It keeps me, my husband's happy out of Marshalls for buying stuff. But this story really got it. You expanded this story into a novella, and I couldn't put it down because it was like two murder cases being handled by the same murder case being handled by two different people. And I know Karen Vale, she wasn't going to put up with the other ones, with Demont and with the rest of them. And you wonder sometimes which side is really corrupt and which side is not corrupt. So if you expanded Fatal just into a novella, how would you do it? And are you going to write more short stories? Short stories are fun.
so it's an interesting question. When I conceive of these stories, it's not like I'm writing a long form outline. So as I told you, I outline my
Mhm.
story before I start writing. So, and the same goes for a short story or a novel. Uh, if I expanded it, I'd have to rework things. I'd
Yeah,
have to deepen the story involving the detectives. I'd have to go into Leroy Washington's story, perhaps even start the book with that as we see what happens to him. It would be completely different. And, when you look at something like that, uh, it's almost better to start from scratch and write something completely different because Fatal Twist works so beautifully as a short story. That's the way it was conceived. I'm not sure I mean, yes, you can take, and it has been done. You can take a short story and make it into a 2 hour movie. It's been done a lot, um, and it's been done exceedingly well. If I remember correctly, Minority Report was a short story, and it became a terrific 2 hour movie. A number of that author, I'm trying to remember who it is. Name is escaping me at the moment, but the author, when he was alive, wrote a lot of short stories, and a number of them have been made into full length films. So it is possible, and maybe what it takes is another writer to step in and re envision the story from the beginning and start with the premise and the ending, and then, flush out what happens in between. I've never done it. I don't know if I would do it unless I had not yet written the short story, but looked at it and went, "Oh, what if?" and then reworked the outline again into a long form story. But I think when you have a vision of what the story is, and it comes to you and you start working on it, and it's right. If you're at peace with where it's going and you're excited about it, that's the way you want to follow it, and see how that works. If it's not working, then anything goes. You could tear it up, you could burn it, you could rework it, and go from there. But for me, I've never done that. The format I stay in, I usually write, although I have adapted one of my novels to screen, and you know, it, I would do it again if they asked me to. When when The Seventh Victim was adapted to film for that failed TNT movie that it was supposed to happen, and didn't happen, not for any reason relative to The Seventh Victim, but uh, the NBA strike, if you can imagine. That has nothing to do with writing or television, but it did relative to TNT and their television programming. But suffice it to say that the screenwriter that the studio hired to adapt The Seventh Victim from a 400-page novel into a 2 hour movie did a stellar job, and it amazes me at how she did that. And it's a very difficult thing to do. There are things that you can do as a writer, as a screenwriter, to adapt and change and tell that story in much fewer words, or images is usually what you have to resort to take 120,000 words and compress it into a 90 or 120 page screenplay. It's very different, very
You know
different.
what's really scary is that I listen to the news too much. I listen to different channels, and there's a young guy that's a serial killer on one channel 12, a young guy. He said they deserved it, so I did it. And he actually believes that what he did was right. It's frightening. The lately, and they're over there. I got a whole bunch that I have to interview. I'm so glad you didn't write about Iran and the Iran war. Every book over there is just about the same thing that after a while I go like, and there are a couple I turned down. Couple I've been getting like the weirdest things, because after I post something, if it has some kind of tendency, AOL seems to be getting pornographic emails. They're nasty. Like, do you want to do that? I don't even look at. I just ignore it. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're coming from AOL, whatever. And you got to be careful because you don't know where this is coming from. But on the news, there's a young guy as a serial killer. He's 28 or 29, and he said they deserved it. Then there was another one that was downtown and stabbed three people in Queens for no reason. Then they said it was inaugural. There's like the world has become one big fight, and it's scary. And it's too bad there's no real Karen Vales out there. So before we end, what's next for you and where can everybody find it? And the pharmacist that I go to in CVS in Ardsley asked for this.
Okay.
He
Well,
gets all
first,
my books, so Anthony's getting the script.
I will answer your question.
Yes,
First, let me make a comment on a comment you made. There are real Karen Vales out there, and
yeah,
I have worked with a number of them. And I'm not talking about just profilers. I'm talking about law enforcement personnel who are deeply dedicated, really smart, really good at what they do. They care about the jobs that they do, and I mean, I've worked with a lot of these people over the years. I became friends with all of them and stay in touch with them. And these are people who are committed to what they're doing deeply. And sometimes it's fighting a losing battle, but they don't look at it that way. They
yeah,
don't. They stay focused on their job and what they have to do, whether that's winning justice for the families, taking a killer off the streets, taking down a horrific drug cartel, or even just getting bad drugs off the street. I mean, these people are the actual heroes that you hate to use that term, but they're making a difference in society. And there's been a lot of well, bad press, and in my opinion, for good reason, relative to ICE. Um, I think a lot of the problem was poor training, poor hiring. But what we had seen last year was not the way law enforcement is supposed to happen. And there are bad examples that we see, but for every bad example, there's lots more that we're not made aware of. They're just successes. And coming up very soon, maybe next week, I think, is the Law Enforcement Memorial. And that's a special time in Washington, D.C., when law enforcement officers from around the world come and honor those who have been.
I saw that. Yeah,
Anyway,
that
to
that
get back to your question,
that is amazing. What?
um, I am working on a new book. As you know, last 1 year ago, almost, Die Trying came out, which was the fifth OPSEC Team Black novel. Awesome,
Yeah,
awesome story. I love that. I love all the OPSEC Team Black
I
novels.
love Karen Vale the best. Sorry.
Yeah, well, Karen Vale's in all
She's
those
me. I can't
OPSEC
help it.
books as well. And the funny thing is, Dark Side of the Moon, which was the fourth OPSEC Team Black novel, we're now seeing some of that play out in real time with what's going on with China and the moon and the space race, the new space race. That aside, I am working on the ninth Karen Vale novel. It's very exciting. I can't wait to finish it. I am still working on the outline, and I am at a certain phase. I don't get writer's block when I'm writing. I get uh, a form of writer's block when I'm working on my outline. I have too many good ideas, and they basically hamstring me, and I have to stop, back up, and basically take a brand new document, open up a Word
This
document.
this was this was so this made my day. It made me forget I even got an email from an author that's in Vietnam yesterday and said he's finishing a novel and he wants me to read it before it comes out. I said I'm going to send you mine to read, but thank you so much. The
Oh,
novel is called Only the Killer Knows, and basically, where am I here? I have to wait. I don't want to ruin it, but here we go. For those of you that don't know, it's right there. I don't have the book, but I have that. It's one of my novels, and I have to just one more thing. In June, I am going to put on my website, which is just reviews with Fran Lewis. They're stuck with me. I put my 10 most favorite novels that I've read for the first half of 2026. So this one will be included, and I only put 10.
Oh, awesome.
Only put 10. And then people have, like I said, I'm going to post a review later as soon as I like it. And then you'll probably get views in about 5 minutes. But